So on this video I'm going to talk about my trees in the garden, and I grow mainly small trees in this garden, and I did a video a while back where I showed suitable trees for a smaller garden, and again I'm going to go back through some of those now because a lot of them are in leaf, so it's worth doing another video just to show you. This one's Acercapticodium, I think its name is, and it's called Aurea or Aureum, and it has this lovely yellow look. Really nice actually. Those leaves are stunning, and they have this like little red, well in this case now it's kind of orangey. It was more red when it first came out, but it's turned into some shades of orange, and I know this is going to have an absolutely wonderful autumn colour. So for me, because I'm on chalk, this is likely to make no more than 25-30 foot, I think. So that's going to be a really nice one over time. Now I think for the first time I'm going to include things like shrubs. So I might mention one or two shrubs as we go round. And this is Elaeagnus quicksilver. And it has this lovely, lovely look about it, as you can see. Now, although it's a shrub and it makes a good compact, not compact shrub, but a good thicket of a shrub if you keep it clipped, it can also make a lovely small tree if you allow it to. And that is, over time, you'd have to kind of concentrate on it and do some what I call selective pruning. So you could form it to look like a tree. Now at the minute I think it's got two good stout trunks on that. So I'm going to allow both of those to come up, and I'm going to see how they both progress, and one may be sacrificed and taken out, or I might keep both and have like a Y effect. So that is a really nice Elaeagnus, and there's quite a few Elaeagnus that can do the job as well, but quicksilver does make about, I've seen it up to 12, maybe 12 foot as a shrub, but like I say, with a bit of pruning you can make it look like a tree. Now I love this particular shrub here, or tree, sorry, and it's a rus, and it's called Rus glabra lanciniata, and I think it's better than Typhina. But this is always going to make a smaller tree, and if you clipped it hard, I've no doubt it will make a lovely little shrub. But what you do when you clip it hard, the problem you're going to cause is you're going to cause it to sucker. And I know this from experience. If you prune these things too hard, they will run all over the garden. Wherever the roots are, they'll send up a sucker, which if you're a nurseryman, that'd be pretty good. But I'm not a nurseryman, so I don't really want that to happen. But the leaf itself is absolutely beautiful, and it has a stunning autumn colour again. Now, I don't expect this to get bigger than 8-10 foot, especially up here. And it produces these red, sort of fluffy, upright flowers a bit later in the year. But it's a really, really nice one to have. And what I like about this one is that it can naturally have all this kind of look. So the trunks and the branches go all over the place, and it's called the stag's horn sumac. And you can see why when you pick out particular ones like them ones there. They look like the stag's antlers. So that's a really nice one to have. And it, as I said earlier on in the week on another video, it's actually suckered out. I found one sucker and I've lifted it and I've potted it up, and eventually that's going to make me a nice little tree. So should we include fruit trees in this little video? Well, I think we should, because things like the apple tree, which is the one at the back there, and the green gage, which is the second one, and then this one, which is a plum, they make, I would say that's 12, 13, 14 feet up there, and that's the sort of size they make. So they can make quite a small tree, and could be regarded as a small tree. So I would include that in this section. obviously the good advantage to these is that they produce your fruit. And I think this year's going to be an exceptional year. I mean, last year was, to be quite honest. But you can see it's already setting fruit on this plum. And that's going to look good. Now, these were already here when I got here, so they are quite old ones. I'd say they're 40 years old at least. Even though they don't look very big, don't forget they don't get that big. So I'd say they're around 40 years old. And they offer something interesting, as you can see. So as we walk down the garden, we come to this one, which is a sorbus, and you know I like sorbuses. And this one, Olympic Flame, which is a wonderful tree. It's more columbular, a bit wide at the base, but more of a columbular tree that is going to have the most amazing autumn colour once it comes in. And I can't see any flowers on this, whereas all my other sorbuses have produced flowers, whereas this one hasn't. And it's not likely to at the minute, unless it sets them quite late. Now this, I expect to get to about 12, between 12 and 15 foot. Again, remember, we're on chalk, so it's going to halt its growth a little bit. It may make bigger than that. I don't know, it's new to me, this particular variety. So that's a sorbus, and it's a commixter type. So commixter types, remember, as I've said before, make wonderful, wonderful autumn colours. And that'll be no exception to that rule. So this is Cretaceous, that particular one there. Now the ordinary one is Cretaceous monigina, which is that one there, and that's the ordinary edging hawthorn. And this is a Cretaceous, and that is one called Paul Scarlet, and it's an absolute beauty. The colours are amazing at the minute. I was doubting whether this was Paul Scarlet, but I can see now it is, and from up at the house, it's an absolute wonderful tree. It's a small tree. It'll make about 15 foot maximum. It has a lovely rounded head on it eventually, and that's the reason I put it here. So that eventually it gives me that privacy from the road. Because when we're sat in the front room, which is through those French doors, we do get to look through to the roadside, which I don't mind because it's a school, so there's not always people in there. As the light goes on this one, it absolutely zings out. I was watching it last night and it just looks stunning. So that's a Cretaceous or a hawthorn to you and me, and that particular one is Paul Scarlet. There are other varieties, and there are some nice varieties out there. And don't just think that hawthorns are boring, because they're really not. You could grow an ordinary hawthorn itself and turn it into this, and it would have, say, the ordinary one, monigina, would produce a white flower, but nevertheless it would make a lovely small tree, and all hawthorns do. And they're excellent for wildlife. So this is Fagus sylvatica, Dawick Gold, and there's also a Dawick Purple, but this one's Dawick Gold, and produces more of a goldy coloured leaf. Now, I'm hoping as summer progresses that this will produce a better and better and better colour, whereas at the moment it's a light green really. You'd be far pushed to say that was yellow or gold, but makes a nice tree. Now luckily I've still got the label on this one, so we expect it to grow 2 to 3 metres in 10 years, so that's 12 foot, 15 foot. I'd expect that myself to go up to 20 foot, if not bigger, over time. And it's a more columbular type, so it's straight up in the air, but the leaves on it are wonderful, so they've really thickened out since I last showed this, and they do look really good. And if you're struggling for room in your garden, this is one to consider anyway, because it's so fastigiate that it's worth having. So that's a lovely tree. Now next to it I keep this one. This is a Betula, and it's Jecumontii, it's Utilis, and it's the white stemmed birch, the Himalayan birch, and this is a multi-stem, and I've been clipping it in the 3 years it's been here. I keep nipping out the tops, because I know from previous experience that you can delay its growth and you can slow its growth down to a point where it kind of almost gives up and just stays fairly small. But that's something you've got to keep doing. Now remember, these turn white after a few years. Now generally that's around 7 years. There's one called Betula Snow Queen which will do the same thing in 3 years and turn white in 3 years, but mostly they turn white after around 7 years. So this one has been here since we got here. It was already here, and I did some selective pruning, if you remember. I've done a video on that if you want to check that one out. And that was to expose all of this contorted look. So it's Corylus avellana contorta. And this is a stunning tree. This is probably at its ultimate height now. It's probably, what, 15 foot, I'd say that one is. Makes a lovely, lovely little tree. And the birds love this one, and so do squirrels when they get a chance, as the nuts form. The one thing you have to be aware of, and I did show this on the video and said to expect this on the video that I did to show how to do this clipping, was that it's going to produce these. And it'll continue to do this through its life now. And all I do is I come in and I remove those because I don't want those to grow. I need to keep the look that it's already got, which is obviously the contorted look. So this is still small at the minute, but it's called Cornus accusa, and it's China Girl, this particular one. There are other good forms. It's forming its flowers, as you can see there. It has a lovely pattern in its leaf as well, I think. And those flowers get more creamier, and then the centre bit turns strawberry coloured as it loses the outside sections, these bits here. The middle will turn red, and that is the seed. Well, actually, that is the true flower. The middle bit is the true flower. So that's a really nice one. Now that'll make probably 15, 20 foot. And most Cornus acusas are beautiful and look good in autumn as well. They have stunning autumn colours. That's one worth getting. Okay, we'll move into the border on this one because I want you to get a proper view of this. And this one is an elder, a black elder. So it's Sambucus. And I can't really say the second bit of the name. I think it's something like Poripofolia. And it is one called Black Tower. Now it gets to about 12 feet eventually over time, maybe up to 15. Who knows what's going to happen in this garden. Hopefully it'll get to a nice size like that. Now remember, last year I took some cuttings, and this is one of those cuttings. It's now about 1.5 foot. It's doing really well. And I've got another one on the other side of the floating deck, and it's doing really well. And over time, that will give me some sort of a privacy on the deck, and it'll prevent some of the wind, to be quite honest. That's what I'm really looking for. Now this is a pittosporum. And I've said before, pittosporums are not hardy as we'd like them to be in the UK. But, nevertheless, they are a beautiful shrub to have. So this one's called Garnettii. And as you can see, it's a bit sparse on leaves. And if you look below it, there they are. They're all falling off. And if I tapped it, I've no doubt some more will fall off. There you go. That more will fall off. Don't worry if that's happening to yours right now. What it's doing is it's producing new leaves, because don't forget it's evergreen. Producing new leaves, and it's going to want to shed some of the older ones. And especially if they've been frosted through the winter, it'll want to shed quite a few of those. So this is a silver birch again, an Himalayan birch, and it's one called Silver Shadow. Supposedly one of the whitest and truest whites of all the birches. And it really is, as you can see. And one of the most unblemished. And it has a bigger leaf. And it's looking great. Now, it's taken some time to get established in this garden because I've had this in a pot for years and years and years. And we've got 1 or 2 dead sections on it now that I will eventually get round to and clip away. But that's the beauty of that. That's only ever going to make, if I'm lucky, it'll reach 12 foot. But I doubt it'll even make that. It is a very, very small birch. Quite a rare one and hard to get hold of. So that's really nice. Look for one called Silver Ghost. That would be another good one to consider. And is a stunner as well. So hollies, basic hollies. There you go. That one's what, 15 foot at the moment, and it will continue to go up a little bit more. I may have to go in there at some point and take out the crown again. I've never took the crown out, but I think someone or something has, and it's likely to be the pigeons that sit on it. This is why these things happen. This is why the branch at the top, because they've been damaged by a bird sitting on them. And it's usually the wood pigeons that do that. It is around here anyway. So that's a good one to consider. So there can be shrubs or there can be small trees. There's another sorbus here, and I've several of these sorbus. Well, two now actually. Exaggerating a little bit there. But this one is a sorbus autumn spire, and it's an orchiperia type. And it's setting flowers now. Got the flowers, and it'll not be long before it's starting to set some berries on them. And they're kind of a yellowy colour, the berries. They go through a yellowy, reddy colour eventually, mainly a yellow. And that's a really nice small columnar fastigiate tree to get. I'll take you around to the other one so you get a kind of a better idea, because we've got nothing in the way of this one. So there we go. There's the other one. So it stays very, very tight and columnar, as autumn spire suggests. This is a berberis, and this can be a small tree. You can see I've been working on this one for some time now, and it's a cracking shrub. I love it, and it's easy to make it look like it's a small tree. I'm actually going to have an elongated shrub, but again fastigiate. Well, that one should look really, really nice, and it's flowering at the moment. Produces these yellowy, orangey flowers. Then it sets its berries, little red berries, and they'll look good as well. But it looks really good here. And I had to sacrifice, if you remember, the Cotinus cogigrea, which was royal purple, that sat on that corner, simply because the two were clashing. We didn't really want that to happen. Now this is Acer Grisium, and this is the one that I said isn't quite in leaf yet. The leaves are there. It's always very slow, this one for me, but I think it is in general. But it has this lovely bronzed effect on the leaf when they first come out, so it's looking really nice, and it makes a very, very small tree. I have seen some larger versions of this, but mostly what I've seen have probably made it up to 12 foot, and that's about it. But it gets some very interesting shapes over time, and I will keep pruning accordingly to create that. So hopefully that'll look good in time. So this is one at the back there, that's Prunus cericifera, the red-leaved plum. Not a plum, it's a cherry. And it's very, very nice indeed, that one. And I like that one. It's at its ultimate height now, which is about 15, maybe 20 feet. It'll get no bigger than that. I've been working on this for some time. I was even working on this tree before I even moved into this place, before we bought it. At that point, I wasn't even sure if we was going to go through with the sale, but we did. And I kept coming in and pruning it because it needed some rejuvenation pruning. And it's looking great now. Now, it's not as thick in leaf as it could be, and it does tend to vary year to year. I've been here 3 years, and I've watched it go from a very sparsely leaved tree to a very thick one last year, and again this year it seems to be going into a sparsely leaved tree. But it's a really nice one for a garden, and I've had these in every garden I've ever been in. I've had those type, and it's kind of a key point in this garden. It's lovely. It has a lovely shape, but that isn't by coincidence. That is by selective pruning by myself over time. These things can't always be rushed. You could have this one. This is Obelisk Omnifolia. Sorry, Amelanchier Obelisk Omni. Start again. It's an Amelanchier Omnifolia Obelisk, and it's a beauty. It's a smaller. I'd call that a smaller tree or a shrub. It's not really a shrub, and as it suggests, it's obelisk shape. And it's not going to get very big at all. In fact, it's only said to get to about 12 foot, so hopefully that's all it'll make in this garden as well. I'll be quite happy if it sticks at that. And don't forget, all Amelanchiers have this lovely look to them in spring because they flower like mad, and the ordinary types have a lovely bronzed flush on the leaf when they first come out. But this is Omnifolia, so this doesn't tend to do that. So here's another sorbus. As you know, I like sorbus. It's a commixter type again. And this is a bit of a beauty because it is producing these wonderful flowers. And I think on some of them they kind of produce a little bit, either they're usually either fully formed or they're just a little bit formed. Now this one seems to be fully formed. It likes to form these bigger flowers where some of them don't. This one's called Sorbus scalaris. So again, it's a commixture type, so it will look absolutely beautiful in autumn. They all do. All the commixture types do look good like that. Now I keep calling this the Persian ironweed, but I actually mean the Persian ironwood. And this is an absolute beauty. It's Parotia, and it's called Persian spire. So as you know, I like upright columnar trees because they go well in lots of gardens, and it gives you more opportunity to put plants around them if they're a bit skinnier. And this one is looking really, really nice. It's a beauty. I'm not 100% sure how tall this gets rather, but it's not going to get too tall. Hopefully not too tall over the time. But I just love these leaves. They're just absolutely beautiful. You can't beat that for looks. It's beautiful. And I think I've got it in the right place here now. I've had it in a couple of places in the garden where I wasn't quite comfortable with it. Now, again, we've got another Sorbus here. Eastern Promise. Tiny baby at the moment. But that is a small tree, a very small tree. In fact, it's probably 12 foot ultimately. Gets to that sort of size. There's another Sorbus called Vilmarinii. It will stay small. Sorbus Eastern Chinese lace will also remain fairly small. So they're good trees to consider as well if you're into Sorbus or the mountain ash. And I am heavily into them. One reason being that they have this lovely autumn colour as well. Now this tree here is slender. Very, very slender, and it's what's known as the driveway tree, and it's a beauty, absolute beauty, and it remains that tightly clipped without any effort at all. I don't touch this one. All I've done to this one is remove some of the lower branches, and they call it the driveway tree because you can fit it down any skinny driveway, and it's a betula, so it's a silver birch type, so it's Betula fastigiata. Now, some people say that this is a pendulous type, but I've not found it to be that. I think they're talking about a different one. This is actually called Jolep or Jost tree, if you look it up, and it's a brilliant tree to have for a driveway or for any area that you've got that's a bit restrictive. Now I like it so much that I bought another one, and this is at the bottom of the driveway, and it's still a baby. And this is what this one looks like at the moment, and it's going to look absolutely stunning. Just needs a bit more time. When I bought the one I've just shown you, it was no bigger than that. So it's been in 3 years, and it seems to have got quite big in a short time. Now, other things you could use as trees is this. It's a yew. It's an English yew, this particular one. Taxus baccata davidi, and it's quite a fast-growing one. Now, if you've got a small shrubby type one, look for Standishii, which is a nice yellow form as well. But this one I've pruned into cloud pruning. I've also got an ordinary one that I haven't touched yet, and I may do the same to that one, but I think I'd like to keep the other one a bit more columnar, which it becomes. It can grow quite quickly, this one, once it's settled in, and I am going to do some more cloud pruning, because originally I'd actually pruned it so we had several different little bits at that time, but I knew over time I wanted bigger formations on it, and that's what's going to happen with that one over time. A lot of the aces are really nice small trees if you're looking for a small tree for your garden, and this in particular that I show quite often on my channel is Acer aconitifolium, and it's just a stunner, probably one of my favourites. In fact, if not the favourite. The autumn colour on this one is amazing as well, and it won't get to be a very big tree at all. Hopefully it won't, and I've got that in full sunshine. Don't think all aces need shade, because they don't. That's in full sun, and it's taking it very, very nicely indeed. So we'll wander down the other part of the garden. Things are moving on at a pace now. looking pretty good. So, do we class this as a small tree? Well, I think we should. And this is Fatsia japonica. And I'm wanting to call this a small tree, a very small tree. Or it could be a shrub. But I'm going to grow it more as a small tree, so I'm going to allow the main trunks on it to keep growing, remove leaves, let it get higher and higher. Now, some winters will affect this one. It's not fully hardy in Britain. It is hardy. It is to a degree, but we'll need some degree of protection. And that's what it gets here. That's why it's looking so good. And again, I thought I was going to have to do a bit of a tutorial on this to show you how to look after it, but to be quite honest, this one's looking after itself. It's not really failed on me. So we could go to viburnums again. Now, there's lots of viburnums, too many on this video to go into. This one's Viburnum iritidiphyllum. Look at that flower, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Not dissimilar to the Sorbus scalaris, actually. But they're beautiful. And they're good for wildlife because they produce a multitude of berries. And then, as you can see, there are some yellowing in this one, and that's just a natural progression. Again, a bit like the Pidsporum, it gets to a phase where it has to release some of its leaves, and they tend to just pull away dead easy if you so wish, or leave it alone and the wind will take care of that in time. And that's because it's now producing its new growth and it's wanting to shed some of the older leaves. That's what they're doing. That's quite natural. Now, Ritidiphyllum I've seen up to 12 foot. So it makes it a large shrub or a small tree. And again, it's all down to the pruning. I could turn that into a tree quite easily. I could turn it into a multi-stem. So I could turn that into a multi-stem tree, because it's got enough stems in there to create that. At the moment, I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm just going to allow it to grow. We'll see what happens over time. There's no rush. Yeah, I love that one. That's really, really nice. So we're about at the end of the small trees, and again, this is an hydrangea, which technically is a shrub, but it can be a small tree if you do the selective pruning again. Now, this will get up to, and people don't realise this, that this hydrangea, which is a quercifolia, so the oak-leafed hydrangea, and you can see why. It's beauty, absolute beauty. I've also got one called burgundy, which goes burgundy colour once the summer kicks in properly, and as we move towards autumn, it goes a real good shade of burgundy. But this can make it to something like 12 feet, and often does if it's in the right place. Now, I think I've got this in a spot-on place here, because I've had it in several other positions in this garden, and this is what I do. I move them around, because some places they'll do really well and grow quite tall, whereas in other places they'll stay relatively small and won't do well at all. Now, the tree behind it, that's Acer, and that's Trompenborg, and that will get to about 12 foot, 15 foot over time. And it will look absolutely stunning in there, especially with the Sorbus behind it. It's just going to look amazing. So there you go, just a little talk on a few trees and an update. In fact, we'll end with this one here. This is called Raven's Bill. It's another Sorbus, a small growing Sorbus. Remember, we're talking small trees in my garden. It gets taller than this, obviously, but at the moment it's only that size, which is 3.5 foot, and producing the usual white flowers. I'm not sure what colour berries it produced, because last year it never flowered for me. This year it is. So that's looking great. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas and a few updates on the trees themselves, to show you what they look like once they come into leaf. And they're not fully in leaf yet, most of them, but they're well on the way to it. I'd say some of them are practically 3/4 of the way, whereas others are only halfway there. But just bear with it, see what happens. Don't forget, in some gardens, a small tree could get bigger than you expect, or it could remain a lot smaller than you expect. Remember, it's all down to soil condition and where it's actually sited. So if it's on a sunny side or a shady side, or it's in a damp area, then that can all have effects on these things. And you really do have to bear in mind that as we go along. So that's it for today. Any questions on trees? Fire away. Happy to answer any questions. And we'll end with this one. and that's the Cretaceous, or the Hawthorn Paul Scarlet. And I can't wait for that to get to its ultimate size, which will probably take 5 years, maybe 10 years. Beautiful. Talk to you on the next one. Ta-da.